Trump is a vote to uphold our American ideals.
I'm proud of the job Donald Trump has done as president. President Trump gets things done.
I grant John a full pardon.
My first help and support came from the FBI agent who arrested me.
I'm so proud of John with his life's turnaround.
If you're looking for hope, look to the man who did what the failed Obama-Biden administration never could do and built the greatest economy our country has ever seen. And President Trump will do it again.
Until Election Day and what the president calls the most important election in our history. Good evening from the nation's capital. I'm Norah O'Donnell, and welcome to CBS News coverage of Night 2 of the Republican National Convention. Already drama tonight before the event kicked off as a convention speaker was bumped from the program for retweeting an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Who we will hear from tonight, President Trump's son, Eric, as well as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. His speech has drawn criticism and sparked a congressional investigation even before it airs. The headliner tonight is First Lady Melania Trump. She will deliver her speech from the White House Rose Garden, weather permitting, which has just been renovated, a project Mrs. Trump oversaw. We begin our coverage with Paula Reed, who is at the White House tonight. And Paula, what can we expect to hear from the First Lady tonight?
Good evening, Norah. Well, this will be the most high-profile campaign event from a First Lady who prefers to keep a low profile. Mrs. Trump is expected to give a speech where she will reflect on her favorite moments from the past 4 years, talk about what she would still like to accomplish, and make the case for why her husband deserves a second term. Now, this is also a chance for redemption. The First Lady was accused of plagiarizing Michelle Obama in her 2016 Republican convention speech, but the White House insists that with tonight's speech, every word is Melania Trump. Now, she will speak before a small group of friends, family, and administration officials who she believes have supported her during her time as First Lady. Norah.
All right, Paula Reed, thank you. Tonight we're joined by several of our political correspondents and analysts. CBS News senior political analyst and 60 Minutes correspondent John Dickerson, Face the Nation moderator and senior foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan, President Trump's first chief of staff, former RNC chairman and CBS News political analyst Reince Priebus, plus CBS News contributor Joel Payne, who was an advisor for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Welcome all. A big night ahead here on CBS covering the We're going to hear from 3 members of the Trump family, 2 of his children and his wife. We know the Republican Party strongly supports Trump's policies. We know that. So is this an effort tonight to personalize the president?
The base is locked down. They can speak to the president's character. That's the traditional role. The Democrats beat up on the president's character pretty strongly. They said that his lack of empathy and honesty actually hurt policy responses on COVID-19 and race. So the question is, how will the family handle this? Will they address character, or will they drive by it and make the implicit argument that the economy is more important? What's interesting about that is Republicans were always the ones who made the character claims in the past. If they talk about the economy and say it's more important, they're essentially copying the same strategy Bill Clinton used to use, saying that's the more important issue than this character issue Democrats have been harping on.
But what can Melania Trump say tonight?
She has a window into the president that nobody else has. So the Democrats have created this boogeyman in Donald Trump, and she will say he is different than that. The man I know is different than their caricature.
All right, we expect President Trump will make an appearance every night of the convention. Tonight, 3 times we'll hear from him. He just pardoned a former bank robber turned criminal justice advocate. He'll be in the audience for the First Lady's address, and now he presides over a naturalization ceremony. Let's listen in to that from the President of the United States at the White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Acting Secretary Wolf, I present to you 5 candidates for naturalization representing 5 countries.
On behalf of everyone here today, I'd like to express my gratitude to you, Mr. President, for hosting this naturalization ceremony here at the White House. To our candidates, it is my honor to administer the oath of allegiance and welcome you as our fellow citizens. Candidates for naturalization, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I hereby declare an oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the U.S. when required by law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by law, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God. Congratulations, you're now citizens of the United States of America. On behalf of the Department of Homeland Security, it is my honor to call you my fellow Americans. Mr. President, I want to again commend you for your dedication to the rule of law and for restoring integrity to our immigration system. Thank you for hosting such a patriotic celebration here at the White House today.
Great job. Thank you very much. Congratulations. That's fantastic. It's really great. Thank you. And I want to thank Acting Secretary Wolf, doing a phenomenal job in so many ways. Today, America rejoices as we welcome 5 absolutely incredible new members into our great American family. You are now fellow citizens of the greatest nation on the face of God's earth. Congratulations.
And there, the president presiding over that naturalization ceremony. There are strict laws in this country that govern the political activity of federal civilian executive branch employees. And I want to bring back in our panel on this. Margaret, never before have we seen a president use the majesty of the White House, a federal building, in order to conduct political activity like that. What are we seeing here tonight?
Well, you're going to hear this term, the Hatch Act, thrown around all the time by political pundits. But what it gets at is just this idea that using federal assets, which are paid for by us taxpayers in a political way, is undermining of the institutions and democracy itself. I mean, what you're seeing there, it's also interesting that the acting secretary was just recently found to be unlawfully serving in the job he was just introduced as holding. He's been serving in this role well beyond the Vacancies Act. So these are laws that are established to create some kind of norm, to create some kind of boundary for what is proper for the presidency and how to use the office. And President Trump has campaigned and turned this into an asset of upending norms and established expectadon't. But they were established in the first place. And I know John has written extensively on why they exist.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to go through the whole history, but what's really fascinating about this is presidents have always kind of played with the line. He's stepping right over it, and I think part of the hope is that the controversy created will convey a message. And that message is that he cares about immigrants, which is contrary to the message that most of the country believes.
And just to remind people, this is not a partisan conversation we're having. Bill Clinton received extraordinary criticism and scrutiny for using the Lincoln bedroom as a place to pay back political donors. Reince, you are the chief of staff. I mean, this is, if you were chief of staff during the Republican convention, would you allow the White House to be used to hold a political event?
Well, first of all,
you're also a lawyer,
John,
too.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. John's right. It's always a balancing act. And when you're going into election, there are all kinds of things you have to account for. Using Air Force One. I mean, how does the president get around? Well, he gets around Air Force One. He parks it in front of an audience. The majesty of Air Force One is sitting there. So what do you need to do?
But the Republican National Committee reimburses.
That's right. So that's exactly what I was going to say. So you strike a balance and you pay for things differently. I'm sure that's happening as well in the White House. Second thing, you go to the Office of Special Counsel, and they write a letter, and they analyze it, and they say, you know, we looked at this. We've got a letter from an independent group of lawyers that say, you can do this speech from the White House. And then you also have coronavirus. And you have special conditions, and you have all kinds of other considerations, social distancing, you know, health, and all those things come into play. It's been approved. Some people might not like it, but it's been approved, and financially it will be accounted for.
And Reince, does it strike you at all that at this naturalization ceremony that we're watching right now, no masks, no social distancing?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. I'm not looking at the screen. But I'm assuming, you know, there's got to be at least some distance. But look, all these people also get tested. When you come near the president, you get tested, just like all of us in this studio have been tested to be here together. Same thing happens in the White House. You don't walk in next to the president without being tested and negative for coronavirus.
I want to bring in Joel Payne, who joins us as well. And Joel, as you witness already as this night unfolds, your thoughts?
Well, look, I think about this as a former staffer. I worked in the Senate. I worked for Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, worked for a member of the House. These are things that when you begin your term of employment, you get very serious briefings about. So it's interesting to see the head of government showing so much caution to the wind. I take Reince's point. I would certainly hope that the appropriate officials are crossing their T's and dotting their I's in terms of federal regulations. I think that much of this is noise, and really what Democrats are probably going to be focused on in terms of pushing back on the president is the messaging that you hear. This stuff is all noise, and I actually think that one of the things that the president's opponents have done wrong is focus on the wrong things. I'd focus on, the legislation, shortcomings in government, shortcomings in managing the coronavirus crisis, as opposed to this. But it is certainly a nuisance, and it certainly doesn't set a good example for government.
I want to bring in, because we're going to hear shortly from Eric Trump, and who is going to not only address his father, because he helps run the business now, but also, I think, his business acumen and his way he does work, essentially.
Well, it's all family for the Trump Organization. The name itself is a large part of how they make money, because the Trump Organization licenses out that name. Keeping it prominent, keeping it in headlines has always been part of President Trump marketing. Eric Trump is, and you've probably seen him in headlines just within the past 24 hours, locked in this argument with New York State and their Attorney General's office about coming in and revealing more information about basically they're accusing him of fraud, of misstating past financial assets in order to get loans. Now, we know that the president, when he was running the organization, went through bankruptcies of his organization 6 times. This has always been something that has been a problem for the Trump Organization, but of course, with the scrutiny now of this office, the state and other offices are really combing through that, looking at tax records. As we know, that's still caught up in the courts as well.
All right, Margaret, thank you. And now we'll hear from the president's son, Eric Trump.
Good evening, America. When I stood on this convention stage 4 years ago, no one fully understood the historic change that was about to take place. We could all feel it. Something was happening. A movement was forming just below the surface. The forgotten man and woman, voiceless in Washington, D.C., were preparing to rise up. Our movement followed the pattern of so many that came before us. First, we were ignored. Then we were laughed at. Then they fought us, and then, together, we won. From that moment forward, America came first. America started winning again. America became respected again. But with every movement, there's a counter-movement. In the view of the radical Democrats, America is the source of the world's problems. As a result, they believe the only path forward is to erase history and forget the past. They want to destroy the monuments of our forefathers. They want to disrespect our flag, burn the stars and stripes that represent patriotism and the American dream. They want to disrespect our national anthem by taking a knee while our armed forces lay down their lives every day to protect our freedom. They do not want the Pledge of Allegiance in our schools. Many of them don't want one nation under God. The Democrats want to defund and disrespect our law enforcement. The Democrats want an America where your thoughts and opinions are censored when they do not align with their own. President Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, and it must be protected." This is the fight that we are in right now, and it is a fight that only my father can win. My father ran not because he needed the job, but because he knew hard-working people across this great country were being left behind. The media mocked these patriots in the flyover states in which they lived. They ignored the Trump flags. They ignored the millions of MAGA banners and barns painted in red, white, and blue. The silent majority had no one fighting for them in either party. Their so-called leaders were bowing to China, bribing Iran, and spending more time worrying about how they'd be received by the elites in Paris than how Americans would provide for their families in Pittsburgh. Our family lost friends, but it only pushed us to fight harder. My father pledged to every American in every city, state, and town that he was going to make America great again. And so began the Great American Comeback. Almost immediately, taxes were slashed, regulations were cut, and the economy soared to new heights, heights never seen before. Wages went through the roof. Unemployment reached the historic lows, especially for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women. Trade deals were ripped up and renegotiated. Lights were turned back on in abandoned factories across our country. Trillions of dollars were repatriated back to the United States, which had been sitting in foreign lands for far too long. Once again, America became the envy of the world. And with that renewed strength came leverage. The president demanded that our allies pay their fair share for the defense of the Western world. My father rebuilt the mighty American military, adding new jets, aircraft carriers. He increased wages for our incredible men and women in uniform. He expanded our military defense budget to $721 billion per year. America was no longer weak in the eye of the enemy. The moment President Trump ordered special forces to kill some of the deadliest terrorists on the planet, the day the mighty Moab was dropped on insurgent camps, is the day America took a stance to never be defeated by the enemy. Al-Baghdadi, Soleimani, dead. Over and over, issue after issue, the economy, the wall, the military, trade deals, tax cuts, Supreme Court justices, VA hospitals, prescription drugs, school choice, right to try, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, peace in the Middle East. Never-ending wars were finally ended. Promises made and promises for the first time were kept. Most politicians spend their entire careers in Washington, D.C. and get absolutely nothing accomplished. For example, Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a politician who has been in government for 47 years. He's a career politician who's never signed the front of a check and does not know the slightest thing about the American worker or the American business, the engine which fuels the greatest economy the world has ever known. The same politician who has been a total pushover for communist China and someone who would be a giant relief for terrorists who now have spent years running, hiding, and being taken out by the most talented military known to man. Joe Biden has pledged to raise your taxes by $4 trillion. 82% of Americans will see their taxes go up significantly. Biden has pledged to stop border wall construction and give amnesty and health care to all illegal immigrants. Biden has pledged to defund the police and take away your cherished Second Amendment. My father, on the other hand, delivered the largest tax cuts in American history, knows if you do not have a border, you do not have a country, and will always support law enforcement and your right to keep and bear arms. Every day, my father fights for the American people, the forgotten man and woman of this country, the ones who embody the American spirit, which is unlike anything else in the world. It built the New York City skyline. It built the Hoover Dam. And soon, under my father's leadership, it will send Americans to Mars. The American spirit can be felt in the majesty of the Grand Canyon, the shadows of Mount Rushmore, and the stillness of the air at Gettysburg. It can be seen in the wide-eyed wonder of every American child as they take their first breath in the greatest country the world has ever known. It defeated fascism, it defeated communism, and in 68 days, it will defeat the empty, oppressive, and radical views of the extreme left. Ronald Reagan's quote ends with this simple warning. One day we could spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men and women were free. Under President Trump, freedom will never be a thing of the past. That's what a vote for Donald Trump represents. It's a vote for the American spirit, the American dream, and for the American flag. To the law enforcement officer who's being attacked, betrayed, and whose job they are trying to make extinct, my father will fight for you. To all houses of worship and to all people of faith stripped of our religious freedoms and religious liberties, my father will fight for you. To the voiceless, shamed, censored, and canceled, my father will fight for you. To our farmers who work dawn to dusk to keep our plates full, my father will fight for you. To every single mother and father, to our veterans, our coal miners, and to the American worker, my father will fight for you. And to every proud American who bleeds red, white, and blue, my father will continue to fight for you. In closing, I'd like to speak directly to my father. I miss working alongside you every single day, but I'm damn proud to be on the front lines of this fight. I'm proud of what you are doing for this country. I'm proud to show my children what their grandfather is fighting for. I'm proud to watch you give them hell. Never stop. Continue to be unapologetic. Keep fighting for what is right. You are making America strong again. You are making America safe again. You are making America proud again. And yes, together with a forgotten man and woman who are finally forgotten no more, you are making America great again. Dad, let's make Uncle Robert very proud this week. Let's go get another 4 years. I love you very much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
And there's a strong speech by Eric Trump and John Dickerson. The Trump brand has always been most virulent when they talk about the forgotten man and woman, the silent majority, to the people who feel like they are left out.
And he added the emotional resonance at the end that only a family member could give. 3/4 of that speech anybody could have given. But at the end, when he speaks directly to his father, he tells voters who are watching that might need to take a second look at Donald Trump because they've moved on. He reminds them of what they liked about Donald Trump. They had a good relationship with his kids. It adds a little something extra there that sounds different than what they've heard from all the other speakers. And so when he speaks directly to his father, it adds a little of that emotional resonance that's why people tune in.
Well, there's still much more ahead. Up next, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and First Lady Melania Trump from the White House. You're watching CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention.
What stands behind the yard sign of an ADT home? It's your world, safer and more secure against the unknown and unimaginable. With tested, trusted, 24/7 protection and a system we help you customize with video doorbells, indoor and outdoor cameras, locks and lights, carbon monoxide detection, and fire and smoke alarms. Now, get our lowest rate for fast response monitoring starting at just $28.99 a month. About $1 a day for ADT. Call 1-800-ADT-ASAP.
All OTC pain relievers, including Voltaren, have one thing in common. None are proven stronger or more effective against pain than Salonpas Patch Large. There's surprising power in this patch. Salonpas. Dependable, powerful relief.
Last time I bought a used car, I ended up paying too much. It's pretty embarrassing.
Only Carfax.com will give you the most accurate price based on the Carfax report.
When I noticed my sister moving differently, she said it was like someone else was controlling her mouth. Her doctor said she has tardive dyskinesia, which may be related to important medication she takes for her depression. TD can affect different parts of the body.
In today's trying times, we're here to help you manage TD. Visit talkabouttd.com for a doctor discussion guide to prep for your next appointment in person, over the phone, or online.
We were so relieved to learn there are treatments for TD.
So tonight, I want to tell you the uncensored truth of what we believe in. We believe in equality of opportunity. We believe in freedom of thought and expression. Think what you want. Seek out the truth. Learn from those with different opinions. And then freely make your voice heard to the world. We believe in school choice because a child's zip code in America should not determine their future. We believe in freedom of religion for all faiths. And we believe in the American spirit, a country founded on ideas, not identity, a country where our differences are embraced, and the only country where the word dream has been attached to it. Because in America, your life is yours to chart. So if you're hearing these things and thinking to yourself, that is the kind of country that I want to live in, well, whether you realize it or not, you are a Trump supporter. I encourage you to see beyond the facade that so many other politicians employ. They mask themselves in disguises of decency as they try to pressure us to mask our own identities and beliefs. My father is the only person to challenge the establishment, the entrenched bureaucracy, big pharma, and media monopolies to ensure that Americans' constitutional freedoms are upheld and that justice and truth prevail. My father does not run away from challenges, even in the face of outright hatred, because fighting for America is something he will sacrifice anything for. He dreams big dreams for our country, and he is relentless at achieving them. You see, Make America Great Again is not a slogan for my father. It is what drives him to keep his promise of doing what is right for American citizens. The energy of change and opportunity is with us. God has blessed us with unstoppable spirit, his spirit, the American spirit. My dad has proven to be driven by that spirit. He has demonstrated his faith and his uncompromising heart and actions. My father has made me believe that America can truly be great again. If you care about living your life without restraints, about rebelling against those who would suppress your voice and building your American dream, then the choice in this election is clear. A vote for my father, Donald J. Trump, is a vote to uphold our American ideals. Be true to yourself and stay true to the dream of America. Thank you, and God bless you all.
That was Tiffany Trump, the president's youngest daughter, speaking earlier. She just graduated from Georgetown Law, and one of the family members that is speaking in support of Donald Trump tonight. Also addressing the convention now is Kentucky's Attorney General, Daniel Cameron. He is the first African-American to hold that post. Cameron was thrust into the national spotlight this year after Breonna Taylor was shot to death by police in her home in March. Cameron, as Attorney General, will decide whether those 3 officers will face criminal charges in that case. Let's listen in now to the Attorney General.
Culture and the destruction of public discourse. They believe your skin color must dictate your politics. And if you fail to conform while exercising your God-given right to speak and think freely, they will cut you down. The politics of identity, cancellation, and mob rule are not acceptable to me. Republicans trust you to think for yourself and to pursue your American dream however you see fit. Mr. Lincoln said the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. I believe Donald Trump can meet Lincoln's mandate, even as Joe Biden remains trapped by his own failed record and by the radicals who dominate his party. Let's be honest, no one is excited about Joe Biden, and so I ask you to judge the record. On criminal justice reform, Joe Biden couldn't do it, but President Trump did. On the economy, Joe Biden couldn't do it, but President Trump did build an economy that worked for everyone, especially minorities, and he will do it again. And on immigration, Joe Biden promises more to illegal immigrants than he does to you. But President Trump believes his highest duty is to the American worker. The choice is clear. Let me close with something my mom told me. This country's many faces comprise a family, not separate parts to be divided against each other. And like any family, we care for one another. We grieve together. We share our burdens and our struggles, and we celebrate our successes. And though we fuss and fight, we are not enemies. We are Americans, united by a collective faith in our Constitution and laws and the fundamental fairness they represent. We are defenders of life and of individual liberty, and we carry the mantle of Eisenhower and of Reagan to be a force for good in this world, and one that must always be reckoned with. That's my Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, that believes America is an indispensable nation, an evergreen tree, standing tall in a turbulent world. And that's why I am voting for Donald Trump for president. Thank you, and God bless.
And there, Kentucky's Attorney General, who some say is the heir apparent to Mitch McConnell there. Let's go now to Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State.
Looking out over the old city, I have a big job as Susan's husband and Nick's dad. Susan and Nick are more safe, and their freedom's more secure because President Trump has put his America First vision into action. It may not have made him popular in every foreign capital, but it's worked. President Trump understands what my great fellow Kansan President Eisenhower said. For all that we cherish and justly desire for ourselves or for our children, the securing of peace is the first requisite. Indeed, the primary constitutional function of the national government is ensuring that your family and mine are safe and enjoy the freedom to live, to work, to learn, and to worship as they choose. Delivering on this duty to keep us safe and our freedoms intact, this president has led bold initiatives in nearly every corner of the world. In China, he's pulled back the curtain on the predatory aggression of the Chinese Communist Party. The president has held China accountable for covering up the China virus and allowing it to spread death and economic destruction in America and around the world. And he will not rest until justice is done. He has ensured that the Chinese Communist Party spies posing as diplomats in America are jailed or sent back to China. And he has ended the ridiculously unfair trade arrangement with China that punched a hole in our economy. Those jobs are coming back home. In North Korea, the president lowered the temperature and against all odds got the North Korean leadership to the table. No nuclear tests, no long-range missile tests, and Americans held captive in North Korea came home to their families, as did the precious remains of scores of heroes who fought in Korea. Today, because of President Trump, NATO is stronger, Ukraine has defensive weapon systems, and America left a harmful treaty so our nation can now build missiles to deter Russian aggression. And in the Middle East, when Iran threatened, the president approved a strike that killed the Iranian terrorist Qasem Soleimani. This is the man most responsible for the murder and maiming of hundreds of American soldiers and thousands of Christians across the Middle East. And you'll recall, too, that when the president took office, radical Islamic terrorists had beheaded Americans, and ISIS controlled a territory in the size of Great Britain. Today, because of the president's determination and leadership, the ISIS caliphate is wiped out. It's gone. Its evil leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, is dead. And our brave soldiers, they're on their way home. The president exited the U.S. from the disastrous nuclear deal with Iran and squeezed the Ayatollah, Hezbollah, and Hamas. The president, too, moved the U.S. Embassy to this very city of God, Jerusalem, the rightful capital of the Jewish homeland. And just 2 weeks ago, the president brokered a historic peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. This is a deal that our grandchildren will read about in their history books. You know, as a soldier, I saw firsthand people desperate to flee to freedom. The way each of us can best ensure our freedoms is by electing leaders who don't just talk, but who deliver. An American hostage, imprisoned in Turkey for 2 years, Pastor Andrew Brunson, said upon his release that he survived his ordeal with these words of Scripture: "Be faithful, endure, and finish well. If we stay the course, we will." May God richly bless you, and may God bless our great nation, the United States of America.
And that was Secretary of State Mike Pompeo from Jerusalem. Want to bring our panel back in. And Margaret Brennan, never before in history that we were able to check has a sitting Secretary of State addressed a political event, certainly not from overseas, while on a trip.
Right. Well, this has always been, you know, the idea of politics stops at the water's edge, that a Secretary of State, as the country's top diplomat, has to represent all Americans and not a party. So there's been this rule of not getting involved in domestic politics. And it's also something that those who work at the State Department, including for Mike Pompeo himself, were told not to do, not to get involved in this election because it muddies the water. It's also using a U.S. ally as a political prop. That's what Joe Biden accused Mike Pompeo of doing, but it's a really powerful one. Mike Pompeo standing on the roof of the King David with the city of Jerusalem behind him is very appealing to evangelical voters like Mike Pompeo himself, who view the modern state of Israel as the modern embodiment of biblical verse. So this is something that speaks very strongly as a political tool, even though the foreign policy accomplishments he rattled off, there haven't been major agreements with the exception of those involving the Netanyahu government in Israel.
And as the president enters the newly renovated Rose Garden in the White House to listen to the First Lady of the United States, I want to ask his former chief of staff, Reince Priebus, about Mike Pompeo. I mean, he is probably one of the few remaining members of the original Trump administration, a loyalist who was first CIA director and now Secretary of State. Why do you think he chose to speak from Jerusalem?
Well, because I think, first of all, it's one of the major accomplishments. And if you look at the Trump foreign policy, you look at how he's realigned our position with China, trade, Israel, wiping out ISIS, the value outweighs the risks. And it's no different than the chief of staff going to a political rally or an employee of the White House speaking at the convention. The Hatch Act does not exclude people from being involved in politics, but what it does exclude is using your position and taking something of value and inserting it into the political arena. And Mike Pompeo didn't do that. He paid for everything himself. And again, this is something that's
he did not pay for everything himself.
To the re-election campaign.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's no different than the fuel on Air Force One. I mean, not every cufflink, not every cup of coffee on the plane. I mean, there are things obviously that you can't extract from the political arena, but as long as you don't cross that line, you can do it.
But Mike Pompeo did sign a policy for his own staff, preventing them and telling them not to do things like get involved in partisan issues in this campaign year.
On personal time. I think there's a key line there.
Yeah.
There's a key line there. The Hatch Act does allow federal employees on their personal time to engage in political activities. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, sent a memo to diplomats saying, not even on your personal time, you may not engage in any partisan or political activities. With his own actions tonight, he has violated the memo he sent to his own
and I'm not sure of that. I mean, that's how you're interpreting it, and I'm not quarreling with you, but the law cannot, no, you cannot prevent a person or an individual from participating in political activity in the United States of America. And it's not allowed, and it's not constitutional.
Well, his number 2 sent a memo saying he wouldn't be doing this.
And the Office of Special Counsel approved it.
And now we are watching the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, into the Rose Garden to give her remarks tonight. Walking along the East Colonnade, the Rose Garden has just undergone a renovation. It was not done for this particular event. It was done with preservationists who work with the White House in other capacities. And John, what's the traditional role of the First Lady's speech?
She can see what nobody else in the world can see, the personal president. And we've seen, remember, she wasn't First Lady, but Elizabeth Dole, remember when she took the microphone and strode through the Republican convention to have a personal connection with the audience on behalf of her husband. Michelle Obama obviously talked about that with President Obama. And we've seen throughout history, the First Ladies can tell a story no one else can, and now's her chance.
It seems like just yesterday that we were at our first convention where my husband accepted the Republican nomination and then became our 45th President of the United States. Yet the energy and enthusiasm for who should lead this nation, it is real today as it was 4 years ago. I know I speak for my husband and the entire family when I say we have not forgotten the incredible people who were willing to take a chance on the businessmen who had never worked in politics. We know it was you who elected him to be Commander-in-Chief, and we know it is you who will carry us through again. We were humbled by the incredible support then, and we are still grateful today. I want to acknowledge the fact that since March, our lives have changed drastically. The invisible enemy, COVID-19, swept across our beautiful country and impacted all of us. My deepest sympathy goes out to everyone who has lost a loved one, and my prayers are with those who are ill or suffering. I know many people are anxious and some feel helpless. I want you to know you're not alone. My husband's administration will not stop fighting until there is an effective treatment or vaccine available to everyone. Donald will not rest until he has done all he can to take care of everyone impacted by this terrible pandemic. I want to extend my gratitude to all of the healthcare professionals, frontline workers and teachers who stepped up in these difficult times. Despite the risk to yourselves and your own families, you put our country first, and my husband and I are grateful. I have been moved by the way Americans have come together in such an unfamiliar and often frightening situation. It is in times like this that we will look back and tell our grandchildren that through kindness and compassion, strength and determination, we were able to restore the promise of our future. Businesses stepped up and volunteers stepped in. People were eager to share ideas, resources, and support of all kinds with neighbors and strangers alike. It has been inspiring to see what the people of our great nation will do for one another, especially when we are at our most fragile. Speaking of strength and determination, we recently celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. Yesterday, on the North Lawn of the White House, we unveiled an exhibit dedicated to women's suffrage. The exhibit called on children from across the country to send art honoring the meaning of this important time in women's history. When I was judging the entries, I reflected on the impact of women's voices in our nation's story, and how proud I will be to cast my vote again for Donald this November. We must make sure that women are heard and that the American dream continues to thrive. Growing up as a young child in Slovenia, which was under communist rule at the time, I always heard about an amazing place called America, a land that stood for freedom and opportunity. As I grew older, it became my goal to move to the United States and follow my dream of working in the fashion industry. My parents worked very hard to ensure our family could not only live and prosper in America, but also contribute to a nation that allows for people to arrive with a dream and make it reality. I want to take the moment to thank my mother and father for all they have done for our family. It is because of you that I'm standing here today. I arrived in the United States when I was 26 years old. Living and working in the land of opportunity was a dream come true, but I wanted more. I wanted to be a citizen. After 10 years of paperwork and patience, I studied for the test in 2006 and became an American citizen. It is still one of the proudest moments in my life because with hard work and determination, I was able to achieve my own American dream. As an immigrant and a very independent woman, I understand what a privilege it is to live here and to enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that we have. As First Lady, I have been fortunate to see the American dream come true over and over again. I have met many inspiring women, children, parents, and families who have overcome life-changing issues that include addiction, homelessness, family members who are ill or have passed away, abuse of all kinds, and many other challenges that would make most people give up. The past 3.5 years have been unforgettable. There are no words to describe how honored, humbled, and fortunate I am to serve our nation as your First Lady. After many of the experiences I've had, I don't know if I can fully explain how many people I take home with me in my heart each day. From brave soldiers who give up so much so that we can be free, to children of all circumstances who I have met around the world. Thank you for inspiring me. It is my greatest honor to serve you. When I speak to members of the military, despite sacrificing time with their families, experience the fear of war or suffering loss, they have no regrets about serving our country. The same goes for their families and the families of first responders who often watch their loved ones walk out the door, not sure if or when they will come home. When I speak to families who have lost someone, the pain mixed with pride I hear in their voices is something I think about often. So thank you to all who serve our country in the military and as first responders. And thank you to the families who wait for them. You are all heroes in your own right. I have also been moved by the many children and families I've spent time with at hospitals, schools, and other locations around the world. Children who are dealing with pain or illness that would break even the strongest adult. Parents who are grateful to wake up every day and see that their child is still alive. These families are a testament to what faith and medicine, strength and science can do. On my first international trip as First Lady, my husband and I visited places of great significance to the three major religions: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. One special memory from that trip is of a young boy I had privilege of visiting while at Bambino Gesù Hospital in Rome, Italy. While there, I read the little boy a story and learned that he and his family had been waiting for a heart for a very long time, and he had a grim prognosis. His situation brought my staff and me to tears, and we spoke of a little else as we flew to Belgium for the next part of our trip. Upon landing just a few hours later, we learned that a heart had been donated and would be going to the little one. I think about him often, along with so many amazing and strong young patients across our own country. More profound and sadly unavoidable examples of our country's strength and character have occurred in the communities that have been impacted by natural disasters. Hurricanes, tornadoes, and flooding may show the ugly side of Mother Nature, but in their aftermath, they can show us a beautiful side of humanity. My husband and I have visited many places that have been affected by natural disaster, and we are deeply moved by the strength of the people who have lost everything and the kindness of neighbors and communities. The common thread in all of these challenging situations is the unwavering resolve to help one another. I recognize the stories I just told about people who survive extraordinary circumstances. But Donald and I are also inspired by the millions of Americans who wake up each day with a simple yet courageous goal of providing for their families and keeping them safe. You are the backbone of this country. You are the people who continue to make the United States of America what it is, and who have the incredible responsibility of preparing our future generations to leave everything even better than they found it. Just as you are fighting for your families, my husband, our family, and the people in this administration are here fighting for you. No matter the amount of negative or false media headlines or attacks from the other side, Donald Trump has not and will not lose focus on you. He loves this country, and he knows how to get things done. As you have learned over the past 5 years, he's not a traditional politician. He doesn't just speak words. He demands action, and he gets results. The future of our country has always been very important to him, and it is something that I have always admired. In fact, it is to help ensure a better future for our next generation that I launched Be Best, my initiative to help children achieve their fullest potential. Be Best has one simple goal: teaching youth about the importance of their well-being, both mentally and physically. This also includes understanding online safety and the dangers of opioid and drug abuse. Through Be Best, my office and I have been able to highlight people, programs, and organizations that are doing extraordinary things in our country and around the world. I continue to believe that by shining a light on these positive examples, others across the country and globe will become inspired to do their part for our next generation. Helping children is not a political goal. It is our moral imperative. When I think back to a defining moment of Be Best, my mind goes to a trip I took to Africa. On that vast and beautiful continent, I was able to visit the countries of Ghana, Malawi, Kenya, and Egypt. One of those visits in particular had a profound impact on me. Ghana, on the coast of West Africa, was the first stop on my trip, and I experienced firsthand its warm people and their traditions. While there, I visited the Cape Coast Castle and learned more about the beginning of a cruel and often deadly journey in the era of the slave trade. I was horrified when I listened to the guide tell me so many inhumane stories, and I gained new perspectives. It is time in our history we must never forget, so that we can ensure that it never happens again. Like all of you, I have reflected on the racial unrest in our country. It is a harsh reality that we are not proud of parts of our history. I encourage people to focus on our future while still learning from our past. We must remember that today we are all one community comprised of many races, religions, and ethnicities. Our diverse and storied history is what makes our country strong, and yet we still have so much to learn from one another. With that in mind, I like to call on the citizens of this country to take a moment, pause, and look at things from all perspectives. I urge people to come together in a civil manner so we can work and live up to our standard American ideals. I also ask people to stop the violence and looting being done in the name of justice, and never make assumptions based on the color of a person's skin. Instead of tearing things down, let's reflect on our mistakes, be proud of our evolution, and look to our way forward. Every day, let us remember that we are one nation under God, and we need to cherish one another. My husband's administration has worked to try and effect change when it comes to issues around race and religion in this country. He is the first president to address a special session of the United Nations General Assembly to call upon countries across the world to end religious persecution and honor the right of every person to worship as they choose. He has made substantial investments in our historically black colleges and universities. This president also continues to fight for school choice, giving parents more options to help their children flourish. My husband knows how to make a real change. From the day that I met him, he has only wanted to make this country the best it can be. For many years, I watched him grow concerned and frustrated, and I'm so proud to see the many things he has done in such a short time. America is in his heart. So while at times we only see the worst of people and politics on the evening news, let's remember how we come together in the most difficult times. And while debate rages on about issues of race, let's focus on the strides we have made and work together for a better tomorrow for everyone. Our administration has also devoted historic resources and produced life-saving results by raising awareness around opioid addiction and drug abuse, especially for children. When so often the headlines are filled with gossip, I want to take this moment to encourage the media to focus even more on the nation's drug crisis. This disease is one that affects everybody. It pays no attention to race, age, or socioeconomic status. Addiction has touched every part of our society in some way. And now, more than ever, we have programs and medicine to combat it. We just need to talk about it openly. And you, the media, have the platforms to make that happen. To the media industry and as a country, I ask that we all commit to helping in our fights against drug addiction by talking about it even more. Especially as we battle the COVID pandemic, we need to remember that suicides are on the rise as people who are struggling with loneliness and addiction feel they have nowhere to turn. Parents, please talk to your children. Teachers and caregivers, pay attention to signs of addiction. Lawmakers, pass legislation that allows those who ask for help to do so safely and without fear, and to provide resources for organizations that help people impacted by addiction. When the stigma is removed, people will no longer be ashamed to ask for help, and lives will be saved. And if you're struggling with addiction, there is no shame in your illness. Please seek help. You are worth it. In my next 4 years as First Lady, I will continue to build upon the best and work with individual states to pass legislation to take care of our most vulnerable. I plan to continue the work I have started with children in foster care, as well as the minority communities and tribal nations. I want to ensure children are being protected and communities have the resources needed to combat drug addiction and child neglect or abuse. Like my husband and the administration, I will continue to encourage education that supports a child's individual needs. It is vital that children are given the building blocks to succeed. I also look forward to continue my work to restore the People's House, which is a lasting symbol of pride for our nation. I believe this iconic home needs to be cared for and preserved so it can be enjoyed by the people of this country and visitors from around the world for years to come. I'm passionate about this beautiful house, the grounds, and all they represent. And now I have a special message for the mothers of this country. This modern world is moving so fast, and our children face challenges that seem to change every few months. Just like me, I know many of you watch how mean and manipulative social media can be. And just like me, I'm sure many of you are looking for answers how to talk to your children about the downside of technology and their relationships with their peers. Like every parent in this country, I feel there are so many lessons to teach our son and responsibilities as his mother, but there are just not enough hours in the day to do it all. I remind myself that I'm more fortunate than most and still have days that I look for wisdom and strength to do the very best I can for him. To mothers and parents everywhere, you are warriors. In my husband, you have a president who will not stop fighting for you and your families. I see how hard he works each day and night, and despite the unprecedented attacks from the media and opposition, he will not give up. In fact, if you tell him he cannot be done, he just works harder. Donald is a husband who supports me in all that I do. He has built an administration with an unprecedented number of women in leadership roles and has fostered an environment where the American people are always the priority. He welcomes different points of view and encourages thinking outside of the box. I know I speak for my husband and the family when I say we are so grateful that you have trusted him to be your president, and we will be honored to serve this incredible country for 4 more years. As you have heard this evening, I don't want to use this precious time attacking the other side, because as we saw last week, that kind of talk only serves to divide the country further. I'm here because we need my husband to be our president and commander-in-chief for 4 more years. He is what is best for our country. We all know Donald Trump makes no secrets about how he feels about things. Total honesty is what we as citizens deserve from our president. Whether you like it or not, you always know what he's thinking. And that is because he's an authentic person who loves this country and its people and wants to continue to make it better. Donald wants to keep your family safe. He wants to help your family succeed. He wants nothing more than for this country to prosper, and he doesn't waste time playing politics. Almost 4 years ago, we went into Election Day completely underestimated. Despite what is being said again this year, I know, just as you do, that Americans will go to the polls and vote on the behalf of their families, our economy, our national security, and our children's future. To vote for those ideals is not a partisan vote. It is a common sense vote, because those are goals and hopes that we all believe in. I believe that we need my husband's leadership now more than ever in order to bring us back once again to the greatest economy and the strongest country ever known. God bless you all, your families, and God bless the United States of America.
And there, the First Lady of the United States, speaking for 25 minutes in prime time, talking about her gratitude to healthcare workers who are on the front lines of the COVID crisis, as well as her own Be Best campaign and her travels around the world and the country and her initiatives. There are at least 50 people in the Rose Garden, by some estimates almost 100 gathered in the Rose Garden. People invited by the Republican National Committee, tested using White House doctors in order to make sure that those are safe there. And John, this was First Ladies always speak in conventions. They're an opportunity to offer insight that no one else has on the president.
She really talked a lot about her experiences, wide-ranging, that she's had in the job. She testified to how hard he works. It was interesting. She said to the families of the COVID victims, "You are not alone." That's not a message. That message of empathy for those who have suffered, the families of almost 180,000 dead in America, that's not been a primary message of the White House. It was part of her opening remarks tonight.
And Reigns, quickly, does a speech like this gain any new voters, new support for the president?
Again, it goes to all the people out there that were there for the president in the beginning. Very strong opening. I agree with John on addressing COVID with empathy. And the close was strong, talking about the accomplishments of her husband and President of the United States.
And that is the end of the second night of the Republican convention, and our coverage will continue on our 24-hour streaming service, CBSN. And please join us again tomorrow night for Vice President Mike Pence. For all of us at CBS News, I'm Norah O'Donnell. Good night.